Eirik the Red's family appears across Greenland farms, Icelandic memory, European chronicles, and two conflicting Vinland sagas. No single source follows them reliably from one shore to the next. Their story must be assembled backward from settlements and voyages, whose archaeology rarely preserves personal names. What emerges is not a heroic household marching together, but relatives taking different routes through a fragile colonial network. Eirik himself is more securely tied to Greenland's settlement than every adventure later attached to his children. Ari Thorgilsson, writing in early 12th century Iceland, provides the earliest surviving concise account of Greenland's colonization. He states that Eirik explored the country and gave it an attractive name to encourage settlement. Ari wrote more than a century afterward, though he stood closer to Icelandic settlement traditions than the extant Sagas. The later Book of Settlements adds family detail while surviving in manuscripts shaped across subsequent centuries. Two Vinland sagas supply the fullest narratives of his relatives. They disagree about voyages, leadership, sequence, and Freydis, warning against combining them into one seamless family chronicle. According to Icelandic tradition, Eirik's father Thorvald left Norway and settled in Iceland. Eirik later established himself there, married Thjodhild, and became involved in killings that led to outlawry. The legal details vary between texts, but exile provides the accepted context for his westward exploration. Around the early 980s, Eirik sailed toward land previously reported west of Iceland. He spent several seasons examining coasts and fjords before returning to recruit settlers. The familiar story of 25 departing ships and 14 arrivals comes from later written tradition. It conveys the voyage's danger, though its exact numbers cannot be independently confirmed. Around 985 or 986, Norse settlers established communities in Greenland's eastern and western settlements. These names describe relative positions along the southwest coast, not settlements on opposite sides of the island. Eirik's farm Bradalid is generally located at modern Kassersuk, within the eastern settlement. Archaeological remains there reveal substantial Norse farming activity beside inner fjords offering pasture and boat access. The household economy depend upon cattle, sheep, goats, haymaking, hunting, fishing, and maintained connections by sea. Every family voyage therefore rested on months of cutting fodder, repairing vessels, preserving food, and organizing labor. Greenland promised land, but its short growing season imposed a narrow margin for poor harvests or delayed ships. Imported iron, timber, prestige goods, and church materials linked farms to Iceland and Europe. Walrus ivory and hides entered outbound exchange, although trade moved through several hands rather than one family enterprise. Within this environment, Eirik's household acquired prominence because settlement leadership joined landholding with control of hospitality and information. Thjodhild appears in the Sagas as the family member who accepted Christianity while Eirik resisted. Small church remains at Kassersuk are popularly identified as Thjodhild's church, but that personal attribution is not archaeologically proven. The ruins nevertheless demonstrate Christian worship developing close to the settlement associated with Eirik's household. This religious division makes the family a useful lens on conversion without revealing their private conversations. Greenland entered Christian institutions gradually, and later medieval churches show that the transformation outlasted one domestic disagreement. Leif Eiriksson became the family's most famous traveler, although the two Vinland sagas assign him different roles. Greenlander's saga makes Bjarni Herjolfsson the first Norse sailor to sight lands west of Greenland. Leif then purchases Bjarni's ship and deliberately explores the reported coasts. Another account has Leif blown off course while returning from Norway, discovering new lands during that accidental passage. both works were composed long after the voyages and shape Leif, according to different narrative designs. Later royal sagas also connect Leif with King Olaf Tryggvason and a mission to Christianize Greenland. That commission is plausible within conversion traditions, but its detailed form cannot be verified from contemporary documentation. The name Vinland appears independently in Adam of Bremen's late 11th century account. Adam confirms knowledge of a Western land before the Icelandic sagas were written, without naming Eirik's children as discoverers. Archaeology supplies the decisive independent evidence for Norse presence in North America. At Lance Aux Meadows in Newfoundland, excavated turf buildings and Norse artifacts establish an early 11th century occupation. Dendrochronological study has identified woodcut in 1021, providing a precise year of activity at the site. That date proves Norse work there, not that Leif, Freydis, Thorvald, or Thorstein personally handled the timber. The settlement's buildings resemble North Atlantic Norse construction and included iron production and ship-related repair work. Its brief occupation looks more like a base for exploration than a self-sustaining farming colony. Wild grapes do not grow around the site today, so Saga Vinland may have covered a broader region. Attempts to match every Saga place name to a modern coastline remain disputed. The physical site confirms the voyage horizon while leaving family leadership beyond archaeological identification. Thorvald Eiriksson receives a Western expedition in the Saga of the Greenlanders. That text describes further exploration and his death after conflict with indigenous people. No independent source confirms Thorvald's presence or the episode's choreography. The indigenous inhabitants encountered by Norse voyagers belonged to societies with deep histories preceding any European arrival. Saga labels for them are outsider terms and cannot recover their precise identities in each described encounter. Archaeology does not justify inventing alliances, speeches, or battles to fill the narrative gaps. Thorstein, another son, is assigned an unsuccessful Vinland voyage and an early death in saga tradition. His importance in Eirik's saga also comes through Gudrid, his widow, whose later travels connect several family branches. Greenlanders' saga rearranges some relationships and expeditions, making a definitive itinerary impossible. Freydis, Eirik's daughter, produces the sharpest conflict between the two sagas. One saga places her within the expedition led by Thorfinn Karlsefni and gives her a moment of defiant resistance. The competing account, instead, makes her organize a separate voyage and engineer the deaths of partners. These incompatible portraits cannot both document the same sequence exactly. They may preserve knowledge that a prominent woman joined Western ventures, but even that conclusion requires caution. Later authors used Freydis to explore courage, dishonor, gender, and family reputation. Treating either portrayal as courtroom testimony mistakes literary characterization for contemporary evidence. Gudrid Thorbjarnardóttir was connected by marriage rather than descent, yet she became central to the family's Atlantic reach. Sagas associate her with Greenland, Vinland, Iceland, and a later pilgrimage to Rome. Some elements fit known routes and social possibilities, while detailed scenes remain dependent on retrospective family tradition. Her son Snorri Thorfinnsson is described as born in Vinland, a claim archaeology cannot presently verify by individual identity. Genealogical importance may have helped preserve these stories because later Icelandic bishops traced descent through this line. Eirik himself never reaches Vinland in the sagas. One version has him prepare to accompany Leif before an accident prevents departure. The incident functions neatly as a literary handover from Greenland's founder to a younger generation. Whether Eirik truly intended the voyage remains unknown. His achievement lay in creating the settlement platform from which Western exploration became materially possible. Brattahlid offered pasture, storage, labor, information, and access to ships moving between Greenland and Iceland. Without those resources, a brief North American base could not be supplied or revisited. The children's reported voyages thus depended upon a colonial household system rather than solitary daring. They also reveal its limits, since no durable Norse colony developed at Meadows. Distance increased repair needs and reduced the support available after conflict, illness, or a poor season. Greenland itself remained occupied for centuries, developing churches, farms, trade, and its own political relationships. The Western expedition site was abandoned, while the family's voyages expanded in literature. This opposite trajectory separates settlement history from saga fame. Archaeology can map buildings, materials, food remains, and dated activity more confidently than personal biography. Texts can preserve kinship and names, yet their narrative motives complicate exact reconstruction. Together they support an interconnected North Atlantic without turning every saga episode into verified travel. The family also resists modern national ownership because its members moved among communities predating present borders. They were products of Norwegian migration, Icelandic settlement, Greenlandic colonization, and wider Christian exchange. Their western roots entered lands long inhabited by indigenous peoples, not an empty continent awaiting discovery. Leif's reputation attaches a memorable name to exploration that archaeology confirms only collectively. Freydis survives through mutually hostile characterizations rather than a secure record of her decisions. Thorvald and Thorstein remain figures whose reported expeditions cannot be independently placed. Theodhild's conversion reflects a plausible household transformation, while her named chapel rests on tradition rather than proof. Eirik stands on firmer ground as the organizer associated with Greenland's late 10th century settlement. The single discovery that would most sharpen this family history would be a securely contextualized inscription naming one relative at an excavated site. No such inscription currently links Eirik's household to Meadows. Until then, dated timber establishes Norse activity, turf ruins establish settlement, and Saga's supply contested human names. Eirik the Red's family spans the ocean most convincingly, where those different records meet without being forced to agree.